You're listening to SM Media, the number one place for exclusive Scottish football content.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Transfer Show. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We have got an all-star panel in this week's episode. We've been away for a wee while, but to come back, it's always good to get the best minds to look back. And it's been a busy kind of week in the transfer window. Let's start first of all. You'll usually find him as our Celtic correspondent, but he's now one of the top writers in Scottish football, I would say. It's a pleasure to welcome on to the show, Josh McCafferty. Josh, welcome back, mate. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great to be back. Not sure about that praise, but you know what? I'll take it every day of the week. So
I'll always say that your writing's up there with the best, and one of our best correspondents as well. The man who brings us all the action up north, and he's going to bring us all the action up north in terms of the transfer front. It is a pleasure to welcome to the show, Stephen Shand.
Thanks for welcoming on again, Scott. Absolute pleasure to be here. It's all about Highland League, man.
It is, yeah. We'll get into the Highland League later on. Obviously, there's been a bit of transfer news up north as well. We'll have to start with the busy news over the past few days. We'll start obviously at the big news, the big departure from Scottish football. I would say, Josh, the news we were all expecting, the departure of Jota from Celtic. He is gone. He's got the lure of Saudi Arabia now. I don't think he'll be the only player to be swayed with that tax-free cash, shall we say. But this is very interesting. Like, it was right out of left field, the link. It was hard to take seriously for a day or two. Then it began to pick up steam. It's now confirmed. It's a record fee, I believe. Overall, kind of three different parts to look at this. First of all, are you surprised that he's left?
When the news came out initially, yeah, I definitely was surprised because I thought obviously the guys in Saudi Arabia would be going for players from the Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, things like that. I didn't expect them to be coming in for someone in the Scottish Premiership as good as Jota is. With the money they can offer, I think they could probably offer a better player that type of money, albeit Jota's talent is right up there with the best in Scotland, in my opinion. For Celtic, it's a big blow to lose him, but like you say, a record fee in the region of 25 million. I think it's good money that the club can reinvest. They still owe a bit of a sell-on fee to Benfica. However, I think if Brendan Rodgers can identify his right target, he can get someone in who can fill Jota's boots. Maybe not as good as Jota because he's a hard player to find, the flamboyance, the flair. He kind of got the football club, in my opinion. I thought he was going to stay around for a while. But obviously, if you're getting what the reported around £192,000 a week, I don't think any of us would turn that down. If you're playing for even your boyhood club, you'd definitely leave and go and take it. So it's disappointing to say the least, obviously, because he's a talented player who contributed a lot last season. But Celtic as a club will move forward, I'm sure, and Jota's getting his mega bucks over in the Middle East, so fair enough to him.
Right, there's two ways of looking at it. First of all, obviously, you look at the Saudi Arabian League. Yes, we know, we've seen with our former Rangers manager as well, the mega bucks he's been offered. That money's appealing. We get that, and obviously that is a big reason a lot of these guys are deciding to go. Jota's obviously a little bit different. He's still relatively young. He's only 24. Do you know what I mean? He's went to Celtic. He's got a lot of first team experience. I know there'll be people that be saying, yeah, he's thrown away the competitive kind of thing of the Champions League and the chance to kind of win trophies and make a big name in Europe. But financially, I mean, as you say, you just kind of compete with that money. And that's the thing as well. Like, yes, Celtic obviously have got a lot of money in, but you look at the Celtic team, maybe with the exception of Kyogo or Carter Vickers, I can't think of a player in that Celtic team tougher to replace, Josh. Like,
yeah,
just, as you say, for his flair, just he brings everything to that kind of that left side. It's going to be difficult. They need to Brendan's going to get it right.
I know, definitely. I would agree with that. Like you mentioned, Kyogo and Carter Vickers there, I think, and Callum McGregor, but there's no doubts about Callum McGregor leaving the club. I think Jota's one of the hardest to replace, like you say. Just everything about him. He's a fan favourite. Obviously, the song is so catchy if you're a Celtic fan. It's very sad that he's left, but like you say, the replacement, it's going to be very hard. You look at the goals he scored in big games last season for Celtic, the Scottish Cup semi-final with Rangers, scored against Rangers twice at Celtic Park on two separate occasions. He scored in the cup final. I think his last touch for Celtic was the goal against Inverness in that cup final. So it was a fitting way kind of to leave the club for him. But it's going to put it this way, it's very hard to find a player who's going to score you a winner in a semi-final, who's going to consistently score in derbies. And let's not forget Jota. He's never really had a poor run of form at Celtic. In honesty, he's always been up there. He's a 7 out of 10, if not 8, 9 out of 10 each week. You're never coming away from a game on a Celtic persuasion thinking Jota was minced today. You're always thinking he's usually one of the standouts cutting from that left-hand side, using his skill, the flair, the flamboyance, showboating. And especially, and I was looking forward to seeing, obviously, last season's Champions League, I think he done quite well. Got a couple of goals for Celtic, so it would have been great to see him in the upcoming season having a crack at that under Brendan Rodgers, but obviously it's not to be the case. So I guess we'll see how he does in Saudi Arabia. However, Brendan Rodgers has to get it right. There's been a couple of names mentioned already. I think Man City youngster Carlos Borges has been a shout. However, I think Enzo Maresca might be looking at him for Leicester City. So the players only get back to Lennox Town, I believe it was Monday. So he does have a lot of time to look at that squad and see where it needs improved. But obviously, that left wing spot's going to be one of the top places he's going to look to sign someone, I think.
Stephen, what's your overall thoughts on Jota's fee? £25 million. It's tough to argue that that's not a phenomenal piece of business from a Celtic perspective, considering they only spent £6 million on him in the summer last year.
Exactly. I mean, it's a hell of a profit. But as we just spoke about there, it's 28 goals and 26 assists in 83 games. That's a lot to replace at a club, and just he's probably the best player in the league, I'd imagine. Certainly recently, but I mean, 192,000 quid a week. You're not going to turn that down, are you? You just can't.
Sounds very nice, doesn't it?
It does. But it's a good point about the age, because a lot of the English Premier League players, if you like, I mentioned, are possibly more coming towards the end of their careers. Your Kantes, your I didn't know about Ziyech, but there's some of the other into their 30s.
Firmino, Brozovic, Benzema. There's a lot of...
Yeah, there's quite a few that are definitely in the twilight of their careers, if you like, but Jota's far from that. But I mean, maybe he'll just go for a couple of years and make that amount of money, and you're set. So it's hard to argue with, but it's a huge replacement required for Celtic. I mean, they've got the young lad in for Australia as a winger, but that's surely a future one. And Rodgers has got to be looking at a proven replacement to get in.
Josh, it was interesting that Stephen brought up Marco Tilio actually for one of the first pieces of the Celtic report, which is launching on the 17th. We actually spoke to an Australian journalist about Marco Tilio, and he says he could very much be a future star for Celtic, but it will take time kind of transferring over. The interesting news today, obviously, after the departure of Jota, was this extension of Kyogo's contract. Now, there's two very good parts of this for Celtic. Obviously, Kyogo, I would say, is the main man in that Celtic team from a prolific talisman perspective. I don't think there's anybody can argue with that. But securing him again for 4 more years, if it was to get a big move, maybe next summer, for example, again, just secures him, gives Celtic that extra kind of bargaining power for a future sell-on fee. I think in terms of Kyogo, I think it's a phenomenal bit of business to get him tied up.
Yeah, I think it's terrific business from Celtic. It did come as a bit of a surprise, in honesty. Obviously they released the wee teaser video this morning, and then obviously a couple of minutes later you had the official confirmation. 4 more years of Kyogo Furuhashi at Celtic, in my opinion, guarantees 4 years of goals. If he does stay for the 4 years, that's one thing he's brought the whole time he's been at the club. I think he scored 34 last season in all competitions. He has 54, and I think it's about 83 games as a Celtic player so far. So it's absolutely terrific numbers he puts up. Week in, week out, he'll bag no matter the opposition. And I think to have him for another 4 years is just, it gives the safety net as well. Like you say, if say a big club were to come in for him next summer, there's 3 years left in his deal. You're guaranteed to be getting a decent amount of money there. If he does leave, and as well, I think I'm not sure how many years he had left. I think he had 2 years
I
left
think
in
it
his
was
deal.
2. I think it's a 2-year
Two.
extension.
So if say he did leave next summer, then you've only got a year left in his deal. Therefore, you're probably looking at not getting a decent amount of money, which is something that'd be bad business from the club. But they've managed to do well. I think Brendan Rodgers will be delighted as well to have Kyogo around. Obviously proven last season, proven in Scotland. We know what he can do. So big game player as well. 5 goals in 3 cup finals for Celtic, which is, I can't remember the last time a player had those sorts of numbers in those types of big games. He's got the knack for scoring in derbies as well now. So yeah, like we've all said, I think it's amazing business from the club, and obviously it gives the fans a bit of a lift as well after the Jota news came on Monday night. I think the club have probably timed that very well on the Tuesday morning to then have the announcement out about Kyogo. So no, very good news if you're of a Celtic persuasion.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything we can argue. Just a couple of wee bits of transfer news. Adam Montgomery's left Celtic to join Fleetwood on a season-long loan. Aaron Moyes obviously hung up his boots after a season at Celtic. No real much news. Stephen Welsh potentially been looked at by a couple of clubs in Italy, so be interesting to see with that one. We'll move to the other side of the city. Rangers, very busy. Obviously, Michael Beale has been at it over the past few weeks to tie up some deals. He's obviously already brought in Kieran Dill, Jack Butland, Dujon Sterling, Sam Lammers. New signing was announced last week. Abdallah Sima from Brighton and Hove Albion on a season-long loan. It's looking like it's only a matter of time before probably I would say the big signing of the summer will be Cyril Dessers from Cremonense for about £4 million. Just another couple of wee infos. It's looking likely that Jonathan Panzo will be the next player to join Rangers. There seems to be reports that there's positive news regarding a deal with him with Nottingham Forest. Regarding Jose Cifuentes, I gather it's still the same there. I think this has been dragging on, but I think both sides are still confident a deal will get done. Personal terms seem to have been agreed. It is just a case of Rangers and his club LAFC agreeing a fee. And Danilo from Feyenoord could be potentially one later on in the transfer window. That could potentially all come down to Rangers potentially selling a couple of players. Top of that list could be Glenn Kamara and Yanis Hadji. Stephen, there is no doubt Rangers have been busy, and Michael Beale seems to be getting his business done early. And I think the Cyril Dessers one is interesting because this was one that has dragged on for a while. Beale seems to be very, very keen to get him in. Seems to be his top target. So I think it's a massive statement that Rangers have been able to get this deal kind of close to done.
Absolutely. They're obviously needing the firepower in, and Dessers quite possibly will provide that. As you said, Danilo's another possibility, and Sima already, who's on loan for Brighton, as you said. So plenty of firepower coming in. It's required, obviously, because big players have gone. Hadji's mentioned. He was even mentioned as a possible signing for Aberdeen. I'll just throw in there.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I like it, Scott. I like it. I was surprised myself, I must admit. Jack Butland's an interesting one for me. He's been on the bench for quite a while now, but he's in England at an Arsenal. And Alan McGregor, although he was coming to the end, it's still a huge presence at the club. Big shoes to fill. But Butland's got the potential to do that. I mean, he was at Man United, so yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, if you can get another two, you get Dessers and Danilo in at Rangers for around 8 million, 7-8 million. I think that would be pretty good business, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it could be as well. I think obviously there's no doubt that the board are backing him with funds. I think as well, like you've got the likes of Kamara who could still generate a good fee. Hadji, I think the past few days we've been hearing that it seems likely he's potentially Rangers are going to listen to offers. Matondo, Cholak, guys like that, I could see them potentially being sold on as well. Josh, I know you'll be looking at this with green-coloured glasses on, but do you look at what Rangers are doing, kind of spending a lot of money up front? Because I thought, we spoke about this a lot last season, I thought the big difference between Rangers and Celtic was the firepower up front, particularly in big games against each other. Celtic had the the knack in front of goal, which I don't think Rangers have had. And I think that has obviously been a key. Beale has obviously identified that as a key area he wants to strengthen. I don't think you can help but be impressed just at how quickly Rangers are going about their business.
Yeah, I think we said this as well when I was on the show a couple of times last season, that another difference between Celtic and Rangers was the way they carried out their business. We've seen Celtic getting deals done quite quickly to get the players bedded in and stuff like that. And I think Rangers have done that this summer. I think they've potentially learned from their mistakes of hanging around a bit. And that's obviously a positive for the club. You look at the guys they've brought in. Jack Butland is a good sign. He's a renowned name in English football. And I think he'll come in and do the sort of, he'll do what Joe Hart done at Celtic. He'll provide stability between the sticks. He'll be a good leader. And I think he'll actually do all right for Rangers. I did like the look of Robbie McGrory when I seen him last season on a few occasions. I'd potentially would like to have seen him more in the upcoming campaign, but Butland is still a good signing. He's 30 years of age. He's by no means old for a goalkeeper, so that's quite good. Obviously, Kieran Dowell, a couple of shrewd pieces of business. Obviously, Butland and Dowell on free transfers, which is quite good. A couple of quality additions there. Do John Sterling, another one on a free who you're looking at, but I really like the look of Abdallah Sima. Even when he was in Prague, I really like the look of him. And obviously, Dessler's is a decent one. He's an experienced striker. The only thing that would worry me is the age factor. But you look at the club when they brought in Antonio Cholak, he seemed to hit the ground running. He was a kind of similar age bracket. I really think the signing that I wouldn't say I would like to see Rangers go over the line is obviously I'm of a Celtic persuasion that would be interesting to see who could do pretty well is Danilo from Feyenoord. 10 goals in the Eredivisie last season. He only started 14 games. So his goals to minute ratio is pretty good. Brazilian, obviously, he looks like a big, powerful striker. I think he could be a good signing for Rangers, in my opinion. But no, good business. Got it over the line quickly. Like you say, there's still a couple of players that could leave to hence generate the funds for more coming in. So yeah, impressive from Rangers so far. They've got quite a few. They've got a couple of decent pre-season friendlies as well, like the Hamburg, Olympiacos, Hoffenheim. So yeah, it's a good chance for the players to test themselves against some decent opposition as well, and it'll be interesting to see if they can challenge more for the title this season than they did last season. I think potentially with that business they could, but I think Celtic could improve as well. We'll see what happens, but good business from Rangers so far.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's obviously stuff to keep an eye on as well. We spoke to a couple of journalists regarding new Rangers signings. That will be coming out in the Rangers assessment as well. Keep an eye on that. Edinburgh, let's move to a couple of bits of news. Hearts, Josh Ginnelly has left Hearts to join Swansea. That is a very interesting one, I think, Stephen. Hearts fans are very keen to keep him. Knowing a couple of Hearts fans, I spoke to them before we come on, and they're getting a bit restless just that there hasn't been a lot of action so far in the transfer front.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was looking through the list of the whole Premiership. Said there's quite a few teams need to get moving. We're praising up Rangers for their moving quickly. There's a lot of teams haven't done any business at all. They're interested in Hearts and Sammy Silvera from Central Coast Mariners, but they've also got 4 English Championship sides up against them, I believe, for that one. So that's not going to be easy to get that over the line. And they've obviously lost people like Michael Smith, who's been a big player for them, and Ginnelly, definitely a big blow. He was quite often their difference maker last season. I mean, they have obviously others like Shankland and so on, but yeah, Hearts fans will be wondering, they'll be looking for improvement after what happened with their collapse to lose third place to the mighty Dons, of course.
Yeah, we'll get into Aberdeen in a wee minute. Hibs, however, Josh, some interesting business there. They've signed a familiar name to Scottish football, a familiar second name anyway, Maximilian Boric from Poland. Obviously, that'll be a familiar name with Celtic fans. I don't know if he's any relation to Arthur, do you know? Is he?
Cousin, I believe.
There you go. So Scottish football can have a connection to bring other players back. Seems to be that Hibs are strengthening their back line. Obviously, Joe Woolacott coming in from Charlton as well. Another goalkeeper. Goalkeeper's been an issue with kind of David Marshall as well. Jordan Obita from Wickham. A lot of high kind of reports on him. Former England under-21 international. Played a lot for Wickham. It's kind of been a player who's kind of lost his way. He's still 29, so he can provide that plenty of experience. and it could be that kind of good replacement that Hibs have needed with Cabraja going back to Croatia.
Yeah, I think looks a quality addition. Obviously, 29 years of age, vastly experienced. That's something Hibs need. They've got a couple of young players in that squad as well, so that bit of experience at the back can do them well. Another piece of business is Adam Lafondra. They brought him in from Sydney FC. He looks actually quite a good goal scorer. I'm just looking at his stats here: 10 goals and from 14 starts in the A League last season. And then
Reading fan, Reading. I'm friendly with a Reading fan from years ago. He loves him.
Yeah,
he loves him from back in the day.
What age is he?
Oh, about 30, 35, 36 maybe.
36.
No, no.
Yeah. So, and then another piece of business Hibs done, I think, they got it done well early, was signing Ellie on a permanent deal. I think that was big for them. He was particularly probably after New Year last season, he kind of kicked on and he was really good. I think in that game against Celtic where Hibs won 4-2, he was terrific that night. So that's a big piece of business for them to get over the line. I'm sure he'll light up Scottish football again, but they've been quick off the mark, similar to Rangers Hibs. So they obviously have the stability of Lee Johnson in charge, and it'll be interesting to see what they can do this season. Obviously, they've got Europe coming up as well, some qualifiers. So hopefully these new signings for Hibs can bed in quite quickly. But Hearts as well, they've been they've not done much. Obviously, the Silvera, I don't know if that's broken down. I think I've seen that earlier today on social media. I'm not entirely sure. But
you might be right.
Yeah, it'll be disappointing for Hearts fans, frustrating as well. But as the rivals across the city are continuing to strengthen even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Aberdeen obviously looking to build on their third place finish, guaranteed European football next season. But I think some strong bits of business. Obviously, we mentioned the last show about Leighton Clarkson coming in. Graham Shinney, they managed to get him on a permanent basis from Wigan. And Stephen, I think one of the shrewdest bit of business so far this season could be the signing of Reece Williams on loan from Liverpool. Had a really good spell at Blackpool last year. I think this could be one of the signings of the summer.
He's a big lad. It was quite interesting seeing Clark. It's obviously mates with Clarkson. I believe he was in holiday with him. It was interesting seeing it was a little skit they did with the two of them bringing Williams in, and he fairly towers above Clarkson. But yeah, he played quite a few games when Liverpool had their defensive issues. Van Dijk had set out injured, so he played quite a lot of games, Champions League and the Premier League. So great experience. I like to think he's at the level of Clarkson is, and if he is, then great. That's fantastic stuff for the Dons. Devlin's a good signing as well. Very disappointed to lose McCrory. I think that's somebody that Aberdeen will miss because just his whole presence, very powerful player. Somebody I think that you just want in your dressing room, a real fighter and somebody that G's up the whole team. So I was pretty disappointed to lose him. But you're never going to compete with Championship money for Bristol City. Need a left back. That's one thing I think is a worry for the Dons. Definitely need a left back. Can't rely on Johnny Hayes forever in that position, and I think he's better further forward anyway, to be honest.
Josh, just run through some other kind of bits of business that have happened in the Premiership before we move on to talk about the other leagues. Kilmarnock, I think, some really shrewd bits of business. We've had Kyle McGuinness joining from Hibs, Matt Kennedy returning from Aberdeen. You've also got like Motherwell looking to replace Kevin Van Veen. They made the signing of Jonathan Abika permanent. I think that's a good bit of business. Dundee making some signings as well. Obviously, Scott Tiffany, Zach Robinson came in as well. Owen Beck from Liverpool. There's some kind of tidy bits of business happening across the league at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Ross County have been quite active as well. They managed to get Brophy on a permanent deal. Young Jay Henderson from St Mirren, he's looked a bright talent whenever I've seen him as well. Some very good moves from some teams. Obviously, was looking good. The likes of, you've got Livingston bringing in a couple of players from Accrington, Harrogate Town, Welch Hayes and Sangari. Zach Hemming making the move to St Mirren on loan. I believe he's at Kilmarnock. It's quite good when they get promoted from the Championship. Obviously, lost his kind of spot last season to Sam Walker. Then St Mirren also bringing in Stav Nakmani, which is a very interesting one from Maccabi Haifa in Israel. Obviously, Celtic have been quite active in the Israeli market, but it's interesting to see some other teams dip their toe in there. But yeah, a lot of teams are quite active. Motherwell, obviously, like you said, replacing Kevin Van Veen, who went to Groningen. Likes of Hearts, though, have not been very active. Celtic have only signed 2 so far, so it'll be interesting to see if they can step up in the coming weeks. I think a lot of teams will, though. After they've returned from pre-season, we'll probably see more active business. Like say as well, Leighton Clarkson, a permanent deal for Aberdeen was amazing. A couple of Rangers fans were calling for him to be signed for them, but for the Dons to get him is brilliant. I watched him quite a few times last season. He was a terrific talent there. So
one player I was going to get your thoughts on was Odin Thiago Holm, obviously coming in from Norway. A lot of people speak again. I don't want to plug in a wee bit what's coming up, but we spoke to a Norwegian journalist about him, and they say in a country filled with young up and coming talents, he's right up there.
Yeah, he was nominated for I believe it was the Golden Ball Award, which is run by Tutto Mercato in Italy. So that just shows you that he's one of the best young talents in European football, certainly in the top 100. He rejected the chance to move to clubs like Bayern Munich and Juventus when he was younger. He wanted to stay and play first team football, and now he's got his move to Celtic where he can more than challenge for that. At the club, he looks very good at an advanced midfielder more, an attacking 8 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a Brendan Rodgers signing. He did meet Brendan Rodgers though before he was appointed and before he was signed. Odin Thiago Holm was in Magaluf. Brendan Rodgers was just up the road in Santa Ponza, so they had a wee meet up at Brendan Rodgers' house, and obviously got the deal over the line. Rodgers must have had a bit of say in it, which shows he's happy for him to be signed.
Yeah.
Still like Tillio, young boy, but we've seen Celtic bringing in players of this age, and like Moussa Dembele in the past, took in Christopher Ajer from Norway as well, go on to make an impact, and then like Jota, we sold in a couple of years for big money. So the club's player trading model is working. That was evident on Monday night. We sell Jota for big bucks, and we're bringing in young players like Tillio and Holm. So excited to see how he can do, Odin. I think he'll do all right.
Yeah, let's move to the Championship. On you go, Stephen, sorry.
No, I was just a wee shout. Brendan, they fancy Magaluf, didn't he?
Aye.
No, aye. I think he has a big villa in Santa Pons. I was there, and Brendan Rodgers was there at the same time. Just that was the rumour about the time Brendan Rodgers was there. So must have went and met him. But
Very good. We'll move on to Championship. Interesting bits of business, Stephen. The D United very much looking to get straight back up. I think a few bits of a shrewd business have obviously went to Partick Thistle, brought in Kevin Holt and Ross Docherty, and right back Liam Grimshaw from Morton. They are, in my opinion, seem to be kind of replacing their kind of best players for last season with the best of the division from the season before and where they're going to be.
Might be a sensible move to bring in championship proven players. That might be the way forward to get straight back up again. I did notice that the Hibs are after Levitt.
Mm-hmm.
They might be coming into some money from Josh Doig moving on in Italy, and they might spend some of that on Levitt. But United, I think that's a wise move. I suspect what they did last season was that they spent possibly too much money on players that didn't work out. So this is maybe a more sensible way of going about things, but they'll be desperate to come straight back up, absolutely.
Josh, some interesting bits of business in the other teams in the league. Queen's Park have been a bit busy as well. Rory Payton coming in from Queen of the South, Sam Kane from Rangers. One signing I think could be a really shrewd bit of business is a former Celtic youth player, Barry Hepburn. Now, a few years ago, I was made aware of Barry Hepburn, watched him in a game a few years ago and was very impressed. He's went to Bayern Munich. This could be a perfect opportunity for him to get some first-team football, because I know that Celtic, a lot of people in Celtic were really high on him before he left.
Yeah, I think Barry Hepburn was one of the top young talents. Then along with Liam Morrison, went over to Germany, joined Bayern Munich. He's from the south side of Glasgow, so he's from that kind of area of Queen's Park. I believe he played for, I think Giffnock was one of his youth sides.
Right.
So obviously he's from that area. Knows it will probably need his family, which can be better as well, because when you're near people you love and you care about, and you're with your friends and family, then it's going to help you play better on the pitch, in my opinion, at least. So Queen's Park, they missed out on promotion last season. Disappointing for them, but some decent bits of business so far. I think Jamie Murphy to Ayr United is another one in the Championship that looks like it could be good. We was at Hibs previously, had a spell at Rangers. We know what he can do. So Ayr United were unfortunate as well last season not to get themselves up, but it'd be good to see them improve. And like you say, Barry Hepburn to Queen's Park is a very shrewd piece of business.
Yep. League One, another side that I think could be desperate to come back up straight away is Hamilton Accies. They've made a few bits of good business as well. Stephen Henry from Queen of the South, they brought him, but I think he was at Hamilton originally. Ewan Henderson, obviously formerly of Hearts, and one of the shrewdest bits of business, Stephen, could be Dylan Tate from Hibs and Loan. Obviously, had a really good time at Rafe last season.
Yeah, he did very well there, didn't he? In Hamilton, yeah, they'll be same as Dun United. They'll be desperate to get straight back up. Jackson Longridge as well, in from Livy. Got Joe McGlynn from Burnley. So they look like they're signing some good experience. Kevin O'Hara from Dunfermline. So quite a few additions there. Hamilton, obviously, they'll have needed them. They've obviously lost quite a number of players out the door as well. But Dylan Tate, excellent signing. He was I saw him a couple of times on the old Friday night championship fixtures, and he was somebody I definitely noticed at Wraith Rovers.
Josh, League Two, not a lot happening in terms of transfers since we were last on. Nothing really to report in the league. Again, it's going to be interesting just to see a lot of players kind of going from kind of League One making the step down. It's going to be very interesting. I think Dumbarton have been very busy, so it could be very interesting to see how that turns up.
Yeah, I think like say League One and League Two, you've obviously each year Championship potentially included. You've got a big turnover of players, whether it be people leaving on frees, people terminating contracts, stuff like that. But Jacob Blaney going back to Hibs, a lot of young players go, obviously down to Leagues 1 and 2, and potentially that's something we'll see later in the window when maybe these players go back to first team training with their clubs like Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, Celtic, and then the first team manager deems them not part of the plans. You might see them drop down to the Leagues 1 and 2 and kind of free transfers, but it's very competitive divisions down there, and teams will be desperate to move themselves up the pyramid.
Yep, absolutely. Stephen, let's just pass the floor to you. You're going to tell us some of the big transfer news in the Highland League.
Well, one that links straight, Buckie Thistle signed Darryl McCarty from Elgin City. He was released from Elgin after a number of years there, and it was a wee bit of a surprise, but that was Ross Draper's practically his first move when he came in, so he's obviously seen something that made his mind up there. But Darryl McCarty's an excellent signing for Buckie. I can see him. Is he going to be the last final piece in the jigsaw? Buckie getting over that line to win the league. I'm trying not to be too biased here, obviously, but I think he could be a major influence for Buckie. For Martin, I think I've got some serious firepower. They signed a guy from the juniors, Jake Stewart from Rothay Rovers, scored a lot of goals for the juniors. So I mean, even when you add him to Scott Lyle, to Paul Campbell, to who else have we got for Martin? There's more than that. They've got about 5 really good strikers, so I can see them doing better again. And obviously Brechin, they've made a couple of good signings from Kelty, and
the boy Chris Muddy for East Craig could be a potential good signing. Right. He's a good player.
But they've lost some big players as well. Actually, Kieran Ingalls was excellent for Brechin when they won the league. And Jimmy Bain left, captain left. Botti Biabi's moved on, so they possibly need to look at getting some strikers in. But it's going to be a super competitive league again. I can see it going 4 or 5, maybe even 6 clubs. And Inverary Locals have signed some good young players. A lot of time for their manager Andy Lowe. He's looking to get talented youngsters in and blood them through. So it's going to be another cracking season in Highland League, I suspect.
Yep, absolutely. As Lowland League, probably the big news over the week was the signing of Ali Roy from obviously a former kind of played at the likes of Morton, Glentoran, Queen of the South had a good history. It was more the announcement that could get people talking in that regard, Josh. But East Kilbride certainly aren't messing about. they look as if they could be the team to beat in the Lowland League.
Yeah, the signing caused a bit of stir on social media. Like
It
we
certainly
said.
did, yeah.
But,
Whether it was on purpose or not, I don't know. But it certainly got a lot of people DMing me.
Yeah, so they eventually get him in. Ali Roy, he's only 25 years old.
He's a good player.
So he's not that. He's just coming into his prime years, I would say, when you get to 27, 28. So he can do a job for East Kilbride. Obviously, they've got McCafferty in, who's a decent manager for the level. We've seen what he done with Darvel last season, defeating Aberdeen. So we'll see what they can do, see if they can push for promotion. Obviously, the B teams are still in that league, apart from obviously Rangers dropped out. That was interesting to see. I believe Hearts and Celtic are still in there.
For the time being, I believe, yeah.
For the time being, as we know. But yeah, obviously you've got Broomhill going back from Open Goal back to their previous entity is just Broomhill FC. They've got Swift back in at the helm there. We'll see what happens in the Lowland League. It's usually yet another very competitive one, like Leagues 1, League 2. So we'll be interested to see what happens there over the season.
Yeah, West, just a couple of wee bits of news just before we come on. Auchinleck have made a couple of bits of business as well. Rory Langan from Beath and Jamie Black from St Cadoc's, they are completely rejigging their midfield. A lot of rebuild going on at Auchinleck. Darvel been quite busy, Pollock, Clydebank, a lot of clubs will be looking at that over the next few weeks as we get into looking at the West. Josh, I'm going to come to you just as we have a wee chat about the women's game. Celtic have been relatively quiet in terms of incomings, but certainly not in terms of outgoings. There's a lot of players leaving Celtic. One in particular that catches your eye is obviously Jacinta. There seems to be a lot of change happening at Celtic, and not in a positive way.
Yeah, it looks like it. Certainly over the past couple of weeks, it's been departure after departure. If you have a look at the Celtic FC women's page, you just keep scrolling down. It's just we're sad to announce so and so's leaving the club. Next one, Natasha Flint. She was a bit of a fan's favourite.
Yeah.
Obviously got that equaliser in that iconic game against Rangers with the headbutt after the game. But yeah, I think the women's game has traditionally, it's not really a good thing, but there's much more turnover in it in terms of each season than there is in the men's game. But it is disappointing to see that. Obviously, Jacinta was very good for Celtic and an exciting attacking player out wide. So disappointing to lose her, but I'm sure Fran Alonso will have a few names up his sleeve that he can pull out. He's done a great job in the Celtic women's job. Obviously, won back-to-back Scottish Cups. Went also close to the league title last season, but he has a big job at his hands this summer if he's to achieve those feats again.
And other interesting news, Stephen, Glasgow City are delighted to announce the arrival of Kenzie Weir on a season-long loan. Who's her dad?
David Weir.
Well done. I was actually surprised. I just saw that kind of fleetingly on Twitter. I didn't think MD knew that.
I didn't feel like a guess, but I mean, obviously it was going to be a fit-up player.
The second name obviously gave it away, but
just a tad, Scott, just a tad. Yeah, it'll be. I mean, how close! What a great end to the season that was. Just fantastic. Yeah, it was pretty interesting following it on the last day in particular. Yeah, but it's the goings from Celtic is really interesting. It just makes you wonder what's going on. And Jacinta, in particular, it's her partner is Celtic defender. There's potential. They're saying that he might be headed for the exit as well. I mean, well, I'll say no more. But Starfelt, yeah, it's a strange one.
Rangers have announced the signing of Michelle Coulson from Anderlecht, subject to international clearance. That could be another really good bit of business as well. A lot of women's action taking place, and we'll be announcing more women's show over the next few weeks as well. So keep an eye on that. It's going to be a very interesting few weeks as well. Transfer window in full effect. It's the early July, so we'll be knowing a lot more over the next few weeks. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have a new show on Monday, where probably I'd imagine some announcements will be taking place, maybe even some departures, we don't know, but it's going to be a very interesting transfer window as always. So all that's left for me to do now is thank my two guests. First of all, Josh McCafferty.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you very much again to Stephen Shand.
Cheers, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in. Please follow us on social media. We'll be keeping everyone up to date with transfer news. And as always, subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.